Early in the morning, one stood in the kitchen, her face glowing beautifully from the pregnancy. At 8 months, her belly had grown so much, but her heart was full of happiness. She hummed softly while chopping vegetables, determined to make breakfast for Jungkook today. Suddenly she felt strong arms wrap around her from behind. Jungkook pulled her closer, his hand immediately moving to massage her swollen belly with such tenderness. He pressed a soft kiss to her neck and whispered in his deep voice, "What's my wife doing so early in the morning?" One smiled softly, relaxing against his chest. "What are you saying?" she teased gently. Jungkook smirked, then turned her around and effortlessly lifted her onto the counter. Leaning closer, he murmured, "You should have called me. I could help you." One's lip curved into a shy smile. Normally Jungkook was the one making breakfast every day, whenever she woke up late. But today, she wanted to cook for him. Before she could argue, Jungkook brushed her hair back and said firmly, "Now watch me cook, hmm?" "Okay, boss." Wine giggled softly. With practice ease, Jungkook began chopping vegetables, seasoning them, and moving around the kitchen with quiet confidence. His tattoo arms flexed with every movement, his intense eyes focused on the food but stealing soft glances at her from time to time. One couldn't help but watch him in awe, her heart fluttering at the sight of her mafia king, who looked so ruthless to the world but so gentle with her. Jungkook was always like this, always making sure she had everything she needed. And ever since learning she was pregnant, he had become even more protective, guiding her, spoiling her, fulfilling every little craving she had without a single complaint. To the world he was feared, but to her he was the softest man alive. Finally Jungkook set the food in front of her. "Here we go, it's done," he said with a composed low voice. He picked up a spoonful and brought to her lips. One ate quietly, her heart flirting under his gaze. Then his voice turned serious. "I might be late tonight. There is important work at the office. Promise me you'll eat dinner on time, take your medicine, and go to sleep. Don't wait for me, okay?" One pouted, her lips curving downwards. She hated sleeping without his arms around her. "Can't you come early?" she asked softly. Jungkook's expression softened, but his tone stayed firm. "I'll try." He couldn't promise more. Wine understood. He was a workaholic, the mafia king with endless responsibilities. Yet no matter how tired he was, he always gave her his time, his love, his everything. After they finished breakfast together, Jungkook kissed her lips tenderly before leaving for the office, and as the door closed behind him, Wan's heart swelled with warmth, because even in his cold, dangerous world, she was his safe place, and he was hers. It was almost 11 p.m. Jungkook still didn't return, and Wan sat on the bed, doing nothing but waiting for him. He had told her not to wait, to sleep early, but she never listened. Her childish nature always did what it wanted, while Jungkook was the mature, responsible one, always taking care of her, always making sure everything was perfect. Still, Wan couldn't bring herself to sleep without him. She stayed awake, eyes heavy, waiting for the door to open. Finally, half an hour later, the lock clicked and Jungkook stepped inside. His face looked drained, his body tired, but the moment his eyes fell on her, he smiled softly, and Wan, with her sleepy little eyes, smiled back at him. "You didn't sleep, didn't I tell you to rest?" Jungkook asked in his cold yet calm voice as he walked closer. One stood up, walked straight to him, hugged him tightly. Jungkook's arms immediately wrapped around her, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. Can't sleep. He mumbled against her hair. No, not without you. One whispered, nodding softly. Even with his tired body, Jungkook bent down and scooped her up effortlessly, carrying her back to the bed. He laid her down gently. I'll be back after freshening up, he said, brushing her cheek lightly before heading to the bathroom. When he returned, he found Wine still awake. Though her eyes were heavy with sleep, she shifted uncomfortably, her legs aching, her hands restless. Jungkook noticed instantly. He always did, even if she tried to hide it. Without a word, he sat down at the edge of the bed and took her food in his hands. One flinched slightly. Oh, no, no, you don't have to. You are so tired already, she protested softly, but Jungkook's grip tightened gently around her ankle. His voice dropped low and husky. I can see your legs are itching. And with that, he began massaging her feet softly, carefully, as if she might break. One's heart swelled, watching him like this, exhausted, drained, yet still putting her comfort before his own, made her feel guilty. But at the same time, so incredibly lucky. Her smile was small but full of warmth as she gazed at him, the mafia king, who the world was ruthless but to her was the gentle soul alive. Within a minute her eyes grew too heavy and she drifted off to sleep under his touch. Jungkook looked up at her peaceful face, his lips curved into a smile. He quietly lay beside her, pulling her into his arms, then started caressing her belly softly. As soon as her warmth pressed against him, his own exhaustion claimed him and he finally let himself rest, wrapped around the only person who could bring him peace. It almost midnight, nearly 2 a.m. One still awake, her stomach glowing loudly. A craving hit her. Something sweet, ice cream. She always had these midnight cravings, and usually she would wake Jungkook to get whatever she wanted. And he never complained, always fulfilling her whims. But tonight she looked at him sleeping peacefully beside her, arms wrapped protectively around her. His breathing was steady, yet she could see the exhaustion in his features. From the long day at the office, making breakfast and massaging her aching legs, she couldn't possibly wake him now. No, she couldn't. Carefully she slid his hand from her waist and tiptoed out of the bedroom, moving silently towards the kitchen. The fridge opened with a quiet hum, but disappointed stuck no ice cream inside. At what should I do? She wondered. There's no ice cream and I can't wake him up. But I want it so bad. A spark of an idea lighted her face. She mumbled to herself, half in excitement, half in hesitation. Should I go to the convenience store now? Can I? The decision made. She slipped back into the bedroom, quietly pulling on a hoodie. Every movement was careful, calculated, so as not to alert the Jungkook. With her heart pounding, one started to sneak out of the house, her mind buzzing with the thrill of a little midnight adventure, all for the scoop of ice cream. An hour later, one returned to the house, holding the bag of ice cream tremblingly. But as she stepped into the living hall, all the lights were on. She froze. At the center of the room stood Jungkook, his eyes burning with intensity. Around him, the guards stood silently, heads bowed. Once heart skipped, she stepped forward shakily. Jungkook, what happened? She asked, her voice trembling. Without a word, Jungkook crossed the distance between them and grabbed her arms firmly, yet not roughly. What Where did you go? He demanded, his voice low, cold, and dangerously serious. One's brow frowned, and a shiver ran down her spine. Actually, Jungkook, I ask you something. He interrupted, his voice sharper. Where did you go? To the convenience store, she admitted slowly. Jungkook's jaw clenched. Do you even know what time it is? His eyes, usually calm and composed, now blazed with anger and fear. One's heart raced. She had never seen him like this before. I just wanted ice cream, she whispered, her voice small. That's why I went. Jungkook released her hand but continued, his voice rising slightly. Why didn't you wake me? Why did you go alone? Do you know how dangerous it could have been? You didn't call anyone, not me, not the guards. You went out unprotected. Do you realize how unsafe that was? Tears welled up in one's eyes. She knew he was right. How could she have been so careless? And now she realized the truth fully. She wasn't just alone, she was carrying their child, their baby. She could never risk something like this. Jungkook's voice grew sharper, almost trembling with his own fear. Are you a child? Can't you understand a simple thing? Didn't I fulfill every wish? Didn't I bring you anything you wanted, even at 3 or 4 in the morning? One lowered her gaze, guilt washing over her. Then, with a small voice, she looked up and said, I'm sorry, I just thought it was only ice cream. I didn't think anything would happen. It didn't come to my mind. Shut up, Jungkook suddenly shouted. Don't say another word. One flinch, started by the intensity in his burning eyes. He hadn't wanted to raise his voice, but when he realized she wasn't beside him, the panic had consumed him. His guard didn't know where she was. His heart raced, every possible danger flashing through his mind. He couldn't lose her, not her. The very thought of her alone at this hour, without protection, sent shiver through him. Even as a feared mafia king, he couldn't protect her if she defied him like this. His trembling, his ailing, everything stemmed from fear, pure, unrelating fear of losing the love of his life. One's eyes filled with tears, she placed her hands over her growing belly, understanding the depth of his fear and love. I'm sorry, it won't happen again. She whispered, her voice cracking. Without another word, she ran to the bedroom and locked the door behind her. Jungkook watched the retreating figure, his heart aching, guilt mixed with lingering fear. The fear of losing her, of anything happening to her, still gripped him tightly. A while later, Jungkook stood in front of the bedroom door, his knuckle gently knocking. Open the door, Wyan, he said softly, his voice calm now. But there was no response. The silence on the other side only made his chest heavier. He knocked again, a little more firmly. Please, baby, open the door. Still nothing. With a long sigh, Jungkook flicked the spare key. He unlocked the door quietly and stepped inside. The sight that greeted him pierced his heart. Wyan was curled up on the bed, wrapped in a blanket, her face hidden. She had cried herself to sleep. Guilt consumed him. He stood for a moment, staring at her fragile figure, remembering how his voice had risen, how fear she had twisted into anger. He hadn't wanted to scare her. He just couldn't control himself when the thought of her losing her crawled into his chest. With a heavy heart, he slid into bed beside her. Slowly, he wrapped his arms around her from behind, pulling her close. pressing his face into her hair. "I'm sorry," he whispered against her, though she was already deep in sleep, his embrace lingering until exhaustion claimed him too. The next morning, Wan walked downstairs slowly, one hand on her round belly. Jungkook was in the kitchen, busy making breakfast. The familiar sight usually warmed her heart, but today her chest tightened. The memory of last night echoed in her head, his burning eyes, his voice rising at her for the very first time. Jungkook had never shouted at her, never. She knew she had been wrong to sneak out at night, but still his anger left a sting, a fear she couldn't quite shake. She lowered her gaze, avoiding his gaze, and quietly moved towards the dining room. The moment Jungkook noticed her, his expression softened instantly. He hurriedly got towards to her side. "Come sit, have breakfast," he said softly. Wine obeyed silently, sitting down without a word. She didn't look at him, didn't smile, didn't speak. She just ate quietly, her mind far away. Jungkook's chest tightened as he watched her. She was always so playful, so talkative, but now she was silent, silent because of him. He had never wanted to see her this way. The guilt got deeper with every passing second. After she finished eating, Jungkook sat beside her. He reached for her hand, holding it gently in both of his, but one flinched at his touch. That tiny moment felt like ache in his chest. "I'm sorry," Jungkook whispered, his voice low, filled with regret. "For last night I shouldn't have yelled at you. I didn't mean to scare you." His shallow heart, his eyes on her face, searching for any sign she was listening. "But when I couldn't find you, I lost control. The thought of something happening to you," his voice cracked. "It terrified me." One kept her gaze lowered. She didn't answer. She couldn't. The hurt inside her was still fresh. Gently she pulled her hand back, stood up, and walked away in silence. She disappeared into the bedroom, leaving Jungkook sitting there, his heart sinking. He let out a deep sigh, his hands covering his face. The weight of guilt pressed heavily against his chest. The silence between them hurt more than anything he had ever faced in his life. At night, after returning from the office, Jungkook entered their shared bedroom and saw Wine asleep. She had never fallen asleep without him before. She always waited for him, but tonight she drifted off on her own. The sight pierced Jungkook's heart. But he said nothing. After freshening up, he lay beside her and gently pulled her closer. The whole night he couldn't bring himself to sleep. A part of him stayed awake in case one wake up craving something, so he could rush to get it for her. But that moment never came. One never stirred, and Jungkook spent the entire night wide awake, silently watching over her. 3 days passed, and Wine was still the same. She avoided him constantly, never meeting his eyes, never holding a proper conversation. She only spoke when it was absolutely necessary, answering with a short distance word. Jungkook tired. He reached out to start conversation, to bridge the growing distance, but Wine kept pulling away. And with every try, his heart ached more deeply, the pain shaking him in ways he had never known before. At night, Jungkook came home earlier than usual. As he stepped inside, his eyes immediately caught Wine standing on the balcony, quietly staring out at the glowing city lights. Jungkook's chest tightened. He couldn't hold himself back any longer. He walked over and gently wrapped his arms around her from behind. One flinched slightly at his touch, but said nothing. She just stood there in silence, and that silence broke Jungkook's heart. In a soft, shaky voice, Jungkook whispered, "Wine, I know it's my fault, but please don't avoid me like this. Please, I can't take your silence. Don't shut yourself away from me. I can't bear it." His voice cracked with desperation. Wine lowered her head, his eyes glistening with tears. She was always sensitive, easily hurt. The memory of Jungkook's shouting still lingered, shaking her heart with both fear and pain. But more than that, deep down, she knew it was her fault, her reckless decision sneaking out alone, risking not only herself but their baby. The shame of it weighed heavily on her. That's why she couldn't bring herself to meet his gaze. Not because she wanted to avoid him, but because the guilt and fear kept pulling her away. Jungkook noticed her trembling, and when he turned her around, he saw her, tears streaming down. His heart shuddered. "Wine, don't cry, please. I'm so sorry." But before he could say more, Wine suddenly burst out, her voice trembling as she shouted through tears, "Why do you keep saying sorry, Jungkook? Every time you say it, I feel more ashamed, more guilty. It's not your fault, it's mine. I'm the one who went out alone like a fool. If something happened because of me to our child, how could I ever forgive myself?" Her voice broke into sobs. Hiccups started to her as she cried harder. Jungkook's chest clenched painfully at the sight. Without hesitation, he pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "No," he whispered firmly, his voice shaking. "Don't say that. Nothing will ever happen to you or our baby. Not while I'm alive. I'll protect you no matter what. How can you even think otherwise?" Wine clung to him, crying against his chest. "You know it wasn't just because you yelled. Yes, I was scared and hurt when you shouted at me that night. But more than that, I realize you are right, completely right, and that shame, it kept me away from you. I know I shouldn't have hurted you with my silence, but I didn't avoid you because I hated you. I avoided you because I hated myself for what I did." Jungkook shook his head quite quickly, his hand gently rubbing her back. "Shh, it's okay. I shouldn't have yelled, Wine. I only did because I was terrified. You don't know what it would to me, not finding you in the house. You don't know how many enemies I have if something happened to you." His voice cracked again, pain lacing his words. "I can't imagine losing you." Wine shook her head, pressing her face to his chest. "It's not your fault, Jungkook. I know that now. I understand. But I'm not scared anymore. I know I should have come to you earlier. I shouldn't have hurted you like this with my silence, but I just," she choked, "I just feel ashamed of myself. That's why I stayed away." Jungkook's lip curved into a faintest broken smile. He pulled back slightly, cupping her face as he gently wiped her tears away. "It's over now. Forget it, Wine. All that matters is you are safe, you and our baby. That's everything to me. I promise I will always protect you both, always." Wine sniffled softly and gave a small nod. Jungkook leaned closer, his voice warm yet teasing. "So am I forgiven now?" Wine lowered her gaze shyly, then gave a smallest nod. Jungkook tidied her chin up with his palm, making her meet his eyes. Slowly he leaned in and pressed a soft, lingering kiss against her lips. One kissed him back, just as gently as first, until it deepened, passionate and full of all the words they couldn't say. Jungkook held her tightly in his arms, as if he would never let go and one turns to him just the same, her heart finally at peace.